with the call. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Maria. That's right. We are here in the booth. That's Paul Chan, Marshall Sutcliffe, and we are here to bring you Booster Draft. This is where things get real, Paul. We're here early in the day on day 2. But as you saw from the pod structure, on day 1, it's random. You can sit with anybody. You never know what you're going to get. But now it's based on your record, right? So now the players who are real dialed in and are having a great tournament find themselves sitting across from the other players who are doing exactly that. Now, the one we're going to focus on here is Gabriel Nassif. And you can see his seat there in the lower right. And look at that. Shota, David Inglis, Michael Gotris, and Wild LaRue, Benton Madsen, our undefeated player. I mean, this is the death pod.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of see how there's kind of a weird separation here with the way players are seated. You have a lot of kind of the established players on that bottom right-hand side, right?
Yeah.
You have a bunch of top finishes there, but then a lot of the newcomers here on the top left side. Curious to see if that's going to affect kind of some of the way that the draft shakes out, because of course, players like Gabriel, Nassif, Shota, Yosaoka have done this millions of times before, but relative newcomer Benton Madsen, of course, with that amazing 8-0 start, see if he can kind of continue what he's been doing in this draft.
That's right. Gabriel Nassif right in the thick of it, being passed by Shota Yasoka, Antris, and Wild LaRue. All right, let's get underway here. You can see the players are ready. They've got their 3 booster packs set out in front of them. They're going to be a called draft. You see our judges assisting the players, and they're going to be giving them instructions about when they can look at the cards, when to count the cards out to make sure that the correct number's in the pack, and keep everything on the up and up.
Pack. You have 40 seconds.
All right, let's take a look at what
have?
Nassif opens here. He's got a Flensing Raptor pulled to the front. One of the best uncommons, Bladehold Warwick, Crown and Ichor, and a Sword of Forge and Frontier as well.
What do you think about the mythic rare that goes into all decks?
Yeah, windmill that one. You know, this card is truly excellent. There's even an equipment sub-theme in this set. Like, not that you need it to play a sword like this, but there's even one extra little thing that the red deck's the best deck.
Right.
And so, like, you're not that unlikely to face it.
5
and it
seconds.
just hoses the entire deck. So,
yeah.
Sword of Forge and Frontier. But, boy, what a stacked pack, right? Drown and Ichor, Flensing Raptor, Bladehold Warwick are all very solid cards.
Yeah, but I mean, just you have to feel good about opening a colorless card that you know, no matter what, this card is going to make it into all the decks. And now you have that flexibility. You get to see what's open and then kind of move into that lane while still preserving your first pick.
Looks like he's pulled Volt Charge to the front, and that does look to be the card that he wants. There's also a Chimney Rabble, which is a card that's really overperformed. I think if you read it before having played the set, you'd say, it looks okay,
right?
Solid, but it's actually one of the top performing commons in the set, so not bad. But Volt Charge is harder to replace than a card like Chimney Rabble.
Yeah, and there's several reasons why Chimney Rabble is so strong. Of course, just on rate, 4 mana, 4 power, 4 toughness, right? But also because of that equipment sub-theme, the fact that you can trade and then still just move around equipments in this format gives you that little extra bit of value.
So good start here for Gabriel.
You have 35 seconds.
The Hall of Famer from France has a bomb and then a solid removal spell to follow it up.
Oh, evolving adaptive here. Really probably just going to slam that. One of the best green uncommons in the set here. You can anytime you just draw this on turn 1, it can just really snowball the game.
That's right. 1-drops are a big part of this format. You know, there's a lot of action that happens at the 1, 2, and 3-drop slot in the early part of the game. And if you can have a 1-mana creature that performs as well as a 2-mana creature in this case, or maybe even a 3, you are in great shape. The only downside is that he picked the red-green sword and then picked a red and a green card, so he doesn't get to hose.
I think he's still going to be okay with that, right? Look, you play against a deck that's playing one of those colors, it's still great, right?
Well, you got to know your metagame, buddy. You know, you got to get somebody into red-green so you can get them. Ooh, there's an exuberant Fuseling. Speaking of 1-drops that are good, that's an Eckergen Rot Priest that he's taking a look at. That's a very powerful 4-mana spell, but it does have black in it.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if he just wants to stay on the more aggressive plan with the Fuseling.
Yeah, certainly the most powerful card in the pack is the Rot Priest, but given that you have the Volt Charge, right, and the Proliferate does work with the Fuseling, red-green just kind of wants to be oil-themed anyways. You want to be aggressive, so not too surprising that Nassif goes with the Fuseling here.
Yeah, Fuseling's slightly worse than the Evolving Adaptive, but not a lot. Like, they both perform very well in the format. Man, he's really has the dream start here, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he opened up a bomb. that's colorless. And now he has, removal spell into 2 premium 1-drops in the format. That's exactly where you want to be in this set.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it looks like
Furnace Punisher.
Furnace Punisher, just a really great solid creature. That added text, very irrelevant, but 3 mana for a 3/3 menace is just
Shuffle and
above
pass
rate
10 cards
for
to your
in limited, and very, very happy to take that. And Nassif now just
Pick up the pack.
looking to
You
cut
have
off red,
25
right?
seconds.
3 red cards with the sword, so really, really solid start here.
Yep, Furnace Punisher added to the pile. There's Blazing Crescendo. Conduit of Worlds. That does have a powerful late game. It just doesn't fit the format very well. It's not usually the game plan you want is to grind into the middle late game. You just want to get your
5
opponent dead.
seconds.
And it doesn't do that.
Yeah, there are formats where the card is excellent. I think we're just going to see a Blazing Crescendo here from Nassif.
Draft.
Continue
Shuffle and pass
taking the
9
red
cards
cards
to your
here.
left.
Not seeing a whole lot of green here, so right now I think Nassif
Pick
is
up
just
the
on the,
back.
I'm
You
going to
have
keep
20
taking red
seconds.
cards and then figure out what my second color is going to be.
Looks like he's got Hazardous Blast pulled to the front here. Is there anything else? One thing we'll note is the green that you mentioned, just drying up a little.
Yeah. Seeing a couple of white cards here,
5 seconds.
right? But I think Nassif is just happy continue taking these red cards. And, red is a deep color. It is
Shuffle and pass
possible
8
you
cards
could
to
end
your
up in
left.
mono red.
That's true.
Pick up the
Yeah,
pack. You
red
have
and
20
white are
seconds.
considered the 2 deepest colors in the format. Whisper of the Dross. Maze's Mantle, not really a great card in green anyway. He could just sort of punt this pick and take the Furnace Skull Bomb
5
as
seconds.
call it a filler card.
Right. And he's already got a couple of cards that
Draft.
that are good
Pass
with the
7
Skull Bomb,
cards
right?
to
You
your
have
left.
the Evolving Adaptive, you put a couple of oil counters on that, boom, that's just +2/+2.
Pick up the back. You have 15 seconds.
Also interesting here, there's another Blazing Crescendo here. Does he have something else that he'd like?
Titanic Growth for maybe Pump
Yeah.
Spell
5
Diversity.
seconds.
Yeah, I guess you'd rather just have the Crescendo and keep cutting red.
Yeah.
The thing that I noticed here is for those of you that were with
Pass
us
6
yesterday
cards to your
morning, we
left.
watched Luis Scott Vargas draft, another Hall
Pick
of
up the
Famer,
back,
another
you have 10
GOAT
seconds.
tier player, and the approach is similar, right? They both sort of had a few
5.
colors early and then solidified one and have really leaned hard into one to try to
Draft.
keep themselves
Pass
open
5
for the
cards
second
to your
pack.
left.
And that
Look at
second
that.
pack can dictate, maybe he opens
the
up
pack,
a
you have
black
10 seconds.
Planeswalker or a white one, and he can just shift over into that and have that opportunity where if he had
5.
sort of hemmed and hawed in the middle and taken more green cards, he may not have that door open to him.
Right.
Draft. Pass 4 cards to your left.
Well, it takes something.
So that is a fairly late
Pick up the
Testament
back.
Bearer, not
You
an
have 5 seconds.
not an incredible card, but a solid card, right? But in a kind of a more controlling shell. But looking at
Draft.
at this
Pass
point, you
3
kind of
cards
want
to
to
your
look at the cards in the pack and try to see, okay,
Pick
what
up the
what
back, you
table,
have 5
right?
seconds.
What are the colors that I'm seeing here, and that might help make your decision
Draft.
into what you
Pass
want your
2
second
cards
color
to
to
your
be
left.
moving forward.
Pick up the back. You have 5 seconds.
But honestly, we're looking at these packs, and you're only just seeing those red cards. There's no cards in
No.
another color that stands
Draft
out,
and
right?
pass.
Evolving
last
Adaptive
card.
jumped out, and everything else
You
has
now
been
have
done.
Right, no
60
no
seconds
Predation
to look at your
Steward,
cards.
No good
no
white
Mantis, no Vorak. There's just all the green commons that you're looking for. You only saw the adaptive.
I'll be honest, there really wasn't any cards at all,
Yeah.
right? Like no great white cards, not even the blue cards weren't even good. And I mean, there's not a lot of blue cards.
Yeah, and again, we have to stress this is pod draft, right? And you're playing in a table with multiple Hall of Famers. These are the players with the best record at the Pro Tour. So you're not going to see those packs where you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this card tabled. Because guess what? Those cards are not going to table, right?
You know the person at your local game store who says, why is this still in the
Right.
pack? You don't
Yeah.
get that at these
Oh
tables.
my God, 8th pick Planar Disruption. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You just don't see that.
Yeah. Also, you're not allowed to talk about your cards.
Can you imagine?
But you know,
Pack one
you're
review.
also not
Wow.
supposed to with the local game store, but there's always
Right.
that one person
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
doesn't stop them. So yeah, so Nassif taking a look
Please
now
put your cards face down
at
in
what
a
he's
single
got, and
pile.
he's noting for sure the
Open the
green really
booster
dried
mark
up.
B,
And I think that
and
he's
count it
very
face
open
down.
here.
Verify
You know,
that you have 15
Eternal
cards.
Wanderer, slam it, I'm
Oh,
red
yeah,
white,
definitely.
right? Like if he opens up a bomb in another color, he's just going to move in.
Yeah.
The only thing he knows for sure is that he's red.
Pick up the pack. You have 40
Yeah.
seconds.
All right, here we go. Pack 2, pick 1 now for Nassif. Let's see what he's got. He's got Free from Flash.
Hex
There's a
Bolt
Hex Bolt
Splash.
Splash and a Vorak.
Oh, and a Scrap Gorger.
Armor Scrap Gorger 2. Is there a bomb in the pack?
Kemba, is okay.
It's okay.
It's a solid card if
It's
you're the
not
red-white
worth-
equipment deck.
Exactly.
But the thing is, when it's between potentially moving into a second color or just taking Hex Gold Slash, you just take the Hex Gold Slash. The question is, do you want to consider some of those green cards? Now, you didn't see any green pack 1. However, one could argue that maybe a more powerful option could be something like the Scrap Gorger. But Hex Gold Slash, fantastic removal spell. I mean, the fact that one of the most powerful archetypes in the format is just the Toxic deck, right? And if you play against the green Toxic deck, it's just 1 mana kill your 5 mana 4/4 haste.
Right.
I mean, it's just completely devastating.
Yeah, they play Plague Nurse, you just kill it. It's
Right.
like really Venomous Brutalizer, which, by the way, there's one right there. That dies to Hex Gold Slash. Hex Gold Slash is the best common removal in the format.
Yeah.
He's got some really nice green cards here. Sylvok Battle Chair actually does things. There's Bladegraft Aspirant that he's taking a look at for his red deck. And then I mentioned the Venomous Brutalizer here as well. But, you know, he just really, I don't think, wants to be in green if he can help it.
Right. Green was cut off, but it's one of those things where you go, well, maybe Bladegraft Aspirant is just not strong enough. Maybe now is the time for me to consider taking one of these more powerful green cards. The Brutalizer is a better card. Although, of course, if you're looking to be red-green, you don't really care about the Toxic as much.
Yeah.
In which case, you're just looking at a 4-mana 4/4 body, which is still
something. Okay, he took the Aspirant.
All right.
You can hear the judge, you know, when she says draft, you got to draft.
You better take the
He's
card.
got to push in the list. You're
Yeah.
going to tap him on the shoulder if he's not careful. Also, by the way, you see that Band-Aid? That's draft damage for sure. Like all the drafts that they've been doing practicing.
Right.
You know, sometimes you got to sacrifice the body, right?
Yeah.
Flensing Raptor. What does he have? A Freed from Flesh pull to the front?
Yeah, but the thing is, Nassif already has a bunch of combat tricks. Don't really want to take a free from flesh here necessarily. You're seeing a bunch of okay white comments now, right? Flensing Raptor, of course, great in the Toxic deck. And the Duelist that they beat just a solid 2-mana creature. I'm curious what Nassif's curve looks like at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that he has a 2-drop.
I don't know. And, you know, that's what usually when you use your review period between packs, it's to see what your curve looks like and to see like how many creatures you've got.
Right.
What your balance looks like as far as spells and stuff. He does end up taking the Freed from Flesh, sticking to his guns here.
And now there's I don't see a red card.
Ferocity and no red cards. Well, geez, you'd think he cut red pretty well in that
He
first
did.
pack.
I mean, he just took every single red card. Obviously, Thrill of Possibility, not the type of card that you want in an aggressive mono-red strategy.
And he's already got one.
Right.
You know, sometimes you have to run one
5
just
seconds.
emergency mode or whatever, but...
Yeah, so now you just got to take a card that might make it, because if you think you're going to be short
Shuffle
playables,
and pass
perhaps
11
red-white
cards
is
to
the
your
color
right.
combination that you want to be. Just fill out your curve, right?
It's going to take a Leonin
Pick up the back.
Lightbringer.
You have 25
These are the
seconds.
types of cards that go well with the combat tricks that he has, too. So
Okay.
There's a Chimney Rabble.
You'll be happy with that.
So that's kind of easy mode for him here. It doesn't look like there's any competition. Molten Rebuke, you can play one copy of that if you'd like.
Yeah, there's
Geth has proven to be more liability than...
Yeah, you...
Every time
You will
play
win a
it,
lot
kills
more
your board.
matches if you do not play with Geth in your
Yeah.
deck.
Believe me, I tried it once. That was like day 2.
Yeah.
Draft. Shuffle and pass
I was
10
skeptical,
cards to your
and
right.
yeah, it didn't work out very well for me. As you can see, the players count out the cards before passing them.
Pick up the pack. You have
That's just a
25
matter of
seconds.
procedure. You do have to do that, though, here at the PT.
Nassif just
Autonomous
Still
Furnace,
just
Ardish.
locking in all the red cards. What else can we find here? Another
Oh!
Chimney Rabble. Okay.
Hey, this is some business because we knew that he needed these bodies, but you know, the thing that I keep thinking about, Paul, is what you just touched on, which is like, what's my curve
5
like? Where are my
seconds.
2s?
Right. Exactly.
I'm gonna be really nervous
And
right now.
that's the thing. If you go monocolored, all of a sudden you're shutting
Draw.
yourself off
Shuffle
of
and pass
a
9
lot of
cards to
different
your right.
2-mana options, right? So
There just hasn't been
Pick
an
up the
off
pack.
ramp,
You have
right?
20
It's just like
seconds.
the best card's kind of red every time, so he just keeps taking them.
yeah, and I think you're going to see. I mean, you're going to slam that Batter Fist, right?
Yeah, Barbatter Fist.
There's just no question that you're just going to take this. Might be the first 2-drop in this Nassif's deck. So
5 seconds.
He's very excited to see that. Again, still has not really solidified
Draft.
a second color.
Shuffle
In
and pass
fact,
8 cards
this
to your
doesn't happen
right.
very often, but he could delay that decision all the way to pack 3 now.
Pick
Right.
up the
He's
pack.
got
You have
enough
20
red
seconds.
playables that he probably can just sort of float that decision, but he needs to have some feelers, right?
Yeah.
He's got to have a few cards as a backup plan in case he just keeps on getting these sort of decent red cards.
yeah, it's rough too. It's
5
just
seconds.
you're not seeing him even have the opportunity to take cards that you might even consider splashing. there's not a good enough
Draft.
removal spell that
Pass
he's
7
seen.
cards
So
to your right.
he's just consistently just been taking those red cards. He might have to touch on white.
Pick
He
up the
might even
back,
have to
you have
play that
15
helmet, right?
seconds.
If you just feel like you need creatures to fill that curve.
Well, he could take the Autonomous Furnace here. He could also take
5 seconds.
Vanish into Eternity as a weak removal spell.
Draft. Pass
I'm okay
6
playing
cards
the
to your
first
right.
sphere in a lot of instances. We do talk about the
Pick
fact
up
that the
back,
format
you
is
have
pretty
10
quick.
seconds.
So there might be formats where you're happy with 5 spheres. This is not one of them.
Yeah, I tried that
5
too.
seconds.
Okay.
And I think 1 sphere or 2 is kind of where you want to be.
Draft.
So there's
Pass
the
5
battle
cards
chair,
to your right.
powerful equipment spell.
It wheeled, okay.
Pick up
wheeled,
the back,
so-
you have 10 seconds.
It's just really expensive, but I mean, there are ways you can power it out in green-red. So,
Yeah.
5.
And this is just sort of the last little section of the pack here. Just 5 cards left for Nassif, and
Draft.
the basics
That's
in there
4
as well.
cards
So
to your
4,
right.
4 actual picks to go.
Pick up the back, you have 5 seconds.
Yeah, nothing great out of this
Draft.
pack
Pass
either.
3 cards to your right.
No.
Pick up the back,
Gonna
you
take
have
a
5
nice
seconds.
Skull bomb.
Sure.
Along. Okay,
Might end
so
up green.
as we wind down this pack here, Paul,
Draft.
when
Pass
he
2
picks
cards
up
to
his
your
pack
right.
to review it,
Pick up
he's
the
going to
back,
look
you
at
have 5 seconds.
what feelers does he have and what does his curve look like?
Yeah,
Draft
and
pass the last card.
that's my biggest
now have
concern with
90
this deck so
seconds to
far.
look
I just
at
don't
your
know if he has
picks.
enough in his curve if he's looking to go mono red, right? Look at this. We got a bunch of Rebels. That Batter Fist was huge, but I believe it's the only 2-drop in his deck at the moment.
I think you're right.
And then he's got the Fusling, he's got the Punisher, so he's got a 1-drop and a 2-drop. So you're going to see in this pack 3, there's going to be instances where Nassif will have the opportunity to take a more powerful, expensive card, but there's a very high chance he's just going to go for the 2-drop instead
Yeah.
if given that opportunity.
You know, you want that type of curve in this format regardless, but he also has a sort of Forge and Frontier that also wants to have just cheap bodies on the battlefield.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you put it on, right? It makes it big, it makes it scary, it makes it in some cases unblockable, and you just need bodies, right? But it's so much better to put that on your exuberant Fusling early in the game
Yeah.
than it is to put it on your 6-drop.
Yeah. And that Evolving Adaptive is a powerful spell, but if 80% of your cards are red, then all of a sudden your mana base is going to be skewed in a way where it's not going to be easy to play that Adaptive on turn 1, and that's where most of the upside of that card comes from.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if he does play it, it will be because he decided that green is his secondary color because
Right.
he gets a little bit of help here out of this 3rd pack. It wouldn't take much, I don't think, to push him in that direction. That
Yeah.
adaptive is already like filling a gap that he really, really wants to fill, but he is going to need more. Like you
That's
mentioned,
fine. Please put
no
your cards face
Vorax,
down
you
in
know,
single
no
file.
fights or bites,
Open
like
the
nothing
boost-
going on
last
outside of
booster,
it.
count
Let's
it
see what he
face
can
down,
find
make
here.
sure
And
you have
let's
15
keep an
cards.
eye on what kind of discretion he uses to fill out that curve, as you mentioned, Paul. You know, I would not be shocked if he had like a sweet 4-drop and he's like, well,
Axiom
I'm gonna take this
Engraver.
blue ball.
Axiom Engraver, slam it.
There it goes.
Pick up the pack.
I think I'll still take a Dragonwing Glider, though.
Yeah, I think
that's
you would.
maybe a Koth.
Koth would be absurd. There's a Furnace Strider, speaking of.
And no cheap creature. So it's going to be between the Furnace Strider and the Chimney Rabble, most likely here. And-
Well, these are playables. They are not filling needs for Nassif at the moment, but you know, you'll take them. He could also take the Magmatic Sprinter if he really wants to make the curve pick. The Rabble performs significantly better. In fact, the Strider does too.
5 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you just take another Rabble. It is a cheaper card.
It's the cheaper of the
Draft.
2 best
Shuffle and pass
options,
14
right? Yeah.
cards to your left.
Okay, so that's fine, but you know, that's not a removal spell. That doesn't solidify second color, and it doesn't help his
up the
curve.
back,
So
you have 40
while you
seconds.
pick up what is one of the best commons in the set, he's going to need another Chimney
Okay.
Rabble.
How much? Yeah.
There's an Anointer Thrill.
No
Splitter.
cheap
Wow.
cards. And normally the Anointer is fantastic in the red-green oil strategy, but I'm not sure if Nassif has a ton of cards that have oil counters,
No,
right?
he's got a bunch of Chimney Rabbles.
Yeah, there's an Exuberant Fusling as maybe the only card if he's just mono red.
If he's mono
right?
red, yeah. If he could dip into green, the adaptive will have it too. But you know,
Just
I
all
just
the
feel
chimney
like
chimney
if you're
raffles.
Chimney Rabbling,
5
then I think you
seconds.
just want to hit that on turn 4, like actual every time.
Sure.
And you know,
Draft.
oh,
okay.
He's gonna
Interesting.
take the,
I mean, if you're
Monumental
monocolored,
Facade.
you can afford to play that
the
landed,
back,
perhaps
you have
Nassif
35
going, look,
seconds.
I have enough Rabbles.
Sure. He does, by the way. How about a 2-drop here for old Nassif? Okay,
Oh,
there's
that's a Vorak. And
And
Skywarden's okay, but you don't really need a 5.
Right, that's the problem.
So could take the Vorak and go, I have the adaptive, I now have the Vorak and the battle chair. Should I choose green? You do need 3-drops as well. He doesn't have a bunch of 3-drops either.
No, he
doesn't. And the Vorak is significantly better
5 seconds.
I would take
than the other options.
I would say, okay, I'm going to be green.
All right.
And I hope to find, 1 or 2 other
Draft.
decent green cards
Shuffle
to
and
go
pass
with it.
12 cards
Yeah.
to your
There
left.
just hasn't been that, screaming neon sign
Pick
that
up the
says,
back,
come
you
on
have
in.
30
And this
seconds.
is
Right.
the closest he's gotten.
So now he's going to be more open.
Got more 4-drops.
The Mantis is the best option here, now that he's looking to potentially accept green as his secondary color.
Yeah, the real question is, does he want another 4-drop when he's already quite 4-drop flooded, or would he rather have either the Furnace Spellbomb that he can use to just use up
5
mana
seconds.
early, or the Molten Rebuke as a, one of?
Yeah. I don't really like playing too many
Draft.
spell bombs.
Shuffle and
They
pass
11
cycle,
cards
they're
to your
okay. And
But
sure,
if you have
you're
one or 2 1-drops,
Yeah.
Pick
Yeah.
up the back, you have 25
You do
seconds.
have the adaptive and the Fusling.
there's another Blazing Crescendo.
Oh,
Wow,
this is kind of a
pack
blank.
has been a disaster for him.
Yeah.
Pack 3,
Seeing some white cards, but
maybe
white card-
disaster strong because he did pick up strong commons, but
Right.
they're just not the stuff that he needs.
and the thing is,
5 seconds.
he has powerful cards in his deck. Right now, just the big concern is, will he be able to survive?
Yes.
Right, just
Draft.
because
Shuffle and
the
pass
curve is
10
currently
cards
not
to your
ideal.
left.
He's going to take a Mandible Justiciar here. He does have a couple of other white cards. Maybe he's not fully
Pick up the
convinced
back,
on the
you
green
have
plan
25
just yet.
seconds.
Battle chair is not what we need.
Is there a 2-drop for this poor guy?
There's a 3-drop. No
The
red
Basilisk?
cards,
Okay.
right? Not a single red card here.
I would just take the Basilisk then.
Yeah, just fill out the curve.
5 seconds.
Definitely would not take Plague Nurse.
Yeah, Plague Nurse in this deck is just the 4-mana 3/4, which is not really where you want to
Draft.
be, and Nassif
Shuffle
already
and pass
has 4
9
4-drops
cards to
in his
your
deck.
Right. I feel like when you look at the 4s for him, it's just going to be flooded
Pick up
out,
the
and
back.
he's
You
definitely
have
not
20
going to want
seconds.
it.
And you can see basically everybody is prioritizing these cheap cards, which is why Nassif is also just not seeing them.
Yeah, there's an Oil Gorger Troll, but there's also a Sawblade Scamp, and I think he just needs the body.
Yeah.
I mean, again, my mind keeps going back to the Sword of Forge and Frontier as well,
5
where I'm
seconds.
like, I want things like that, just sitting around, ready to pick up the sword and slam.
Draft.
Yeah.
Shuffle and pass
Nassif's
8
just going to
cards
take the
to your
scamp
left.
here. 3 1-drops, though.
That does help.
Pick up the
1
back,
2-drop
you have 20
still?
seconds.
Is that
I,
where we
I
ended up?
think we're at 1 2-drop. Oh, 2 2-drops.
What did
Or
he
the
get?
Cultivator. There's a Predation Steward.
Okay. Or he can take Rustfine Cultivator.
Yeah.
It does give him a little more oil, though. I don't think he really has the
His
chaos
curve
for it,
isn't
though.
super
seconds.
high. And
It does kind of stop at 4, doesn't it?
Right. But we did see in the draft yesterday,
Draft.
Luis
Pass
valued
7
the
cards to
Cultivator
your
very
left.
highly.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's a team thing where they're like, the Steward is all right, but most of the
Pick up
time
the
it's just a
back, you
2-mana
have
2/2.
15 seconds.
I'd rather have the Cultivator.
I like it, too, because it does get your 4-drop down a turn early.
Yeah.
Right? And he's got quite a few of those. Okay, the Magmatic
Okay.
Spectre came
5
back, it
seconds.
looks like, so he's going to take that. He needed another 3 anyway.
Right.
So the only thing that
Draft.
he really
Pass
missed
6
on
cards
here
to
were
your left.
2s,
Yeah.
right? He just has 1 2-drop or
Pick
2
up the
2-drops
back,
or
you have 10
whatever.
seconds.
Tough seat. They're always
Yeah.
tough at the PT,
5.
and especially when you're at the top pod here, it just gets very difficult. They're not going to make it easy for
Draft.
you. Everybody
Pass
knows the
5
cheap
cards
cards
to
are where
your
you want
left.
to be.
Yeah. But Nassif does have 4 1s. He does
Pick
have a
up the
Hex
back,
Bolt
you have
Splash.
10 seconds.
Right. So that helps somewhat, right? You still have 6 plays that you can play in the
5.
first 2 turns of a game. So, I mean,
Also got a thrill of possibility.
Draft.
yeah,
Pass
I know
4
you
that
don't
is
normally
that is
run it.
something that you can do on 2 for sure.
But he
Pick up
doesn't
the back,
have
you have 5
a
seconds.
very high curve, right?
Right.
And that card actually does get a little more reasonable when you're not trying to cast 5, 6 mana
Draft.
spells.
Pass
Yeah.
3 cards to your left.
And you just
Pick up
want
the
something
back,
to do
you
on
have
turn
5
2.
seconds.
Ideally, you affect the board, but Okay, he's going to take
Draft.
a veil here
Pass
as we
2 cards to
wind
your left.
down.
Pick up the back,
Pack
you have
3 for
5
Gabriel Nassif. I
seconds.
really like how he navigated this draft.
Yeah.
That was very difficult seat as far
Draft
as
and pass the
it
last
gave him a
card.
bunch of easy
Okay,
stuff,
at this
right?
time,
Like, here's
please
all the red cards. And it
verify
was like,
that
oh,
all of your
okay,
cards have a
that's
stamp.
easy. But then all of a sudden, he had needs that he was not being presented with and had to move through. And by the way, look at this. We get to see all the cards now.
Yeah, but I mean, if you just look at the overall complexion of deck, you have to just think about at least the bright sides, right? You have a bomb.
Yep.
Fantastic artifact. You've got some removal, and you know, you have those cheap cards that you might not have a ton of twos, but you have cards that can potentially snowball the game. You have the adaptive, right? You play that turn one, then you just play some spells afterwards. All of a sudden, that thing gets out of hand. You can get some pre-wins there. You have the Hazardous Blast as well. That card is an extremely powerful effect, especially in this format. You want to have those early starts, but also there's many decks that have lots of one-toughness creatures. So that card really shines in a deck like Nassif's.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those discipline picks in pack 3 are going to serve him very well.
Yeah.
Particularly anytime he draws a Sword of Fortune Frontier, because he is going to have bodies to put that thing on. And depending on the matchup, that card can be the one that decides it for you. Just take a look at the list here for Nassif. So
Where are 2-drops at?
Yeah, there's this huge gap there. He technically has the Bar Batter Fist, which, you know, acts as a creature. So that would be, you know, you can kind of envision it up in that upper slot. And then the 4 1-drops here as well. His 3s actually did come together. The Furnace Punisher's there, the Contagious Vorak kind of leading the charge, and then he's got some decent stuff with the Sprinter, and he could have a really fast curve. Like the Sprinter has haste, he's got 3 Chimney Rabbles to battle with, and as you mentioned, Paul, his curve only goes to 4. Right? He's running 16 lands.
I mean, if you look at this deck, it's basically maybe 3 2-drops away from being fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? You top out at 4, you have a ton of 1-drops, you have Hazardous Blast. I mean, there's a lot to like about this deck.
He also is playing both of the Skull Bombs, and those are basically just ways for him to cycle through and use the mana for the most part. And look, the Thrill made it in as well. So, you know, recognizing his curve being so low, he can certainly afford to thrill away a land in many scenarios and keep the train rolling here. Hey, this is a compact little deck here for Gabriel Nassif. Of course, we're going to get a chance to watch him play it, but we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have Gabriel Nassif versus Michael Go. Don't go anywhere.